all terrible things aside from the whole Robert Kraft thing, but honestly, um, that gave me hope for the future because if that old man can still get hard, and if he still has that sex drive, that gives like guys like us like a great glimpse like that the future can still be good.
More than likely, he's using like Viagra or something like that, and or some kind of permanent dick hard medicine since he's rich.
Are you? We'll get to it probably a little bit later. Are you at all surprised that that guy of all guys was involved in that sting?
After I look at it, I'm like, was it? But I guess I never really think about it. Who cares?
Let's get to that in a second. But for now, let's get loaded because this is the Loaded Box Podcast.
Were we never finished first? Because we finished last.
You had to think about that one. What's going on here?
So long.
It has been long. Welcome back to the podcast, DJ. What have you been doing?
Really? It's been like 2 weeks, and I don't even know what's going on. And I was worried that people were going to think that we're just done with podcasting, because it's been a long time just in general for our podcast. But you got to know, guys, we would never leave you guys without a happy ending. I can tell you that right now.
Oh, we're going to have a lot of Robert Kraft jokes up in this one. Yeah, the people, like the new listeners, are like, wow, who's this other guy? Like, I thought Mitchell was the other co-host, but all of a sudden, like, dude, DJ's back. So, new listeners, as you know, as you wouldn't know, I'm Ben Morgan. That's DJ Primo. The old listeners, thank you very much for your loyal support. But DJ's back. It's good to be back. We got a lot of great off-season stuff to talk about because football never sleeps, and apparently neither does Robert Kraft. We're going to be talking about that. We're going to be talking about the latest updates around the league, some free agents, some trades, some owners paying for sex, a preview of the offseason for the Oakland Raiders. It's going to be a fun one, so if you haven't done so already, grab a beer. Even if you're at work, bring your boss in, have him grab a beer, and join us. DJ, you ready to do this? Man, welcome back.
I don't even know what to do, but let's get into it. I'm stuttering.
Well, let's jump into it right away. I wanted to hold off on Robert Kraft, but with all the damn one-liners we've already thrown in there. Like I said, man, that news came across. I saw it on my phone. Robert Kraft involved in that sexting. Heard some more on the radio. And like not even a little bit of me was even surprised. You look at this old guy. His wife is gone. He's got all the money in the world. Why would he have a care in the world? I mean, he shouldn't have to pay for these acts. But the fact that he was involved freakily and scarishly doesn't even surprise me.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see this, like, if it's truly just him going into a place to get a rub and tug, that's just, like, the most American thing you can do, really, as a old, like, rich male that doesn't have a wife. And even if he did have a wife, he'd still be going in there, let's be honest. But, like, if it's, like, an actual sex trafficking thing that he was a part of, which I'm sure he's not, but it'd be more fun if he was, because then we could just rip on them. But the other thing I found interesting was, now this may be false, but other people were saying there was another big name, bigger than Tiger. I mean, bigger than. I ruined the lead. I buried the lead there. Jesus Christ. Bigger than Robert Kraft. I was going to say the other big name has to be Tiger Woods, right? Because it's right in his neck of the woods.
Dude, that is exactly where he would be. It wouldn't like surprise me at all because like the whole thing with Tiger Woods was he had the wife at the time. Obviously, they're divorced. His ex-wife is just loaded now, probably living a better life than what she was. And he was with that skier, Lindsey Vonn. I don't think that really ever blossomed into anything, right?
We saw her,
her clam.
Did you see
That's
her
right.
nude pics? Yeah, that was great. And his dick.
Yes, we did see that. And, geez. But where I'm going with this is like...
so blossom into
Yeah.
something. Literally,
so like what would be holding Tiger back? And I don't want to falsely accuse. Let's say that we're recklessly speculating just so that we can cover our ass.
Oh, we are.
That's what we do. I mean, that's what we do. We pride ourselves on our scatterbrain, on our unpreparedness, on our unprofessionalness, and our willing to recklessly speculate. So DJ's throwing Tiger Woods under the bus here. And I got to admit, if his name came out, I'd be even less surprised than Bob Kraft's name coming out.
Yeah. Oh, geez, my voice coming through real good there.
Good, you're rusty.
The other thing I wanted to say is I wish I had, like, access to the Patriots so I could make a documentary, and I would name it Cheating, Murder, and Sex Trafficking the Patriot Way. It's like the best. If somebody doesn't make a documentary on the Patriots in 10 years, and that's not the title, I would be so upset because that's just perfect.
I honestly thought nothing in sports would ever catch my mind, catch my interest like the Aaron Hernandez thing.
Yeah.
And like you said, though, in that one organization, you've got Hernandez, you've got the cheating scandals, you've got Tom Brady making out with dudes, and now you've got this whole Robert Kraft thing. Dude, that's not like a 30 for 30. That's you remember the O.J. Simpson 30 for 30 when it was like 98 parts and each one was 2 hours long?
Yeah.
You would need to double that. Like that's how long this is going to be.
Like this Michael Jordan shit coming in 2020. This would be like the next thing on top of the Michael Jordan.
Oh, that's fantastic. Anything else Robert Kraft related, or should we let him slide for the time being?
Yeah, we can move on. I don't have a joke and way to segue away from that, so I was hoping something would pop in my head, like we could stroke away from that. I don't know. That stunk.
Something will come later. Probably Robert.
That's a good one.
Well, let's talk a little bit of AB because it came out that the Steelers ownership and Antonio Brown met, and it really doesn't sound like the two sides are going to come to a deal. So despite the huge cap hit that it would cost the Steelers, they are open to trading Antonio Brown, basically what they said, at the right price or to the right team. They don't really want to trade within the division or within the conference or definitely within the division. What do you think about this whole Antonio Brown deal?
I can't decide. Obviously, Antonio Brown has his antics. People like to call him this diva wide receiver, whatever. He's never really been. I mean, he had his Facebook situation, but up till like the last couple of years, it hasn't really come out. I honestly think this is also partially a Roethlisberger issue as well. Like, I don't think anybody likes Ben Roethlisberger. You really don't.
I agree, and I think the reason
I hate him, so I'm just going to put blame on him anyways.
I know you do, but I think that ownership almost has to take the quarterback side in this one, just because Antonio Brown's obviously the one that's pissed off already, and it's really hard to part ways with arguably the best quarterback in your franchise's history. So it's almost like they have to take Roethlisberger's side here. But it's hard. It's so funny to watch this team just evaporate as quick as they are. We talk about Seattle, and like they should have been set up for a dynasty with having a young quarterback, a young core of offensive guys, and that solid defense. And man, that fell apart faster than I ever thought it would. Now you've got the three Bs in Pittsburgh. Everyone's like, man, honestly, like, how do they not have a Super Bowl? How have they not had more success? And it's going to be over. Like, Bell's going to be gone, Brown's going to be gone, and Roethlisberger is getting to the age where it's look at those around him. Like Eli Manning was in that same draft class. If he retired tomorrow, no one would be surprised. So we shouldn't be all that surprised if Roethlisberger would hang it up at some point in the near future as well. He's already talked about it. It's just crazy how fast they've fallen off.
Technically, Bell is gone now. Like, the transition today wasn't put on him, so now he's gone.
Right.
He's actually gone already.
Yeah.
And how did that conversation go between Antonio Brown and the owner? Like, just like, maybe we should trade you. Like, how does that conversation end up going down? Like, is Antonio Brown? I can't even imagine like an old white owner talking with like diva Antonio Brown about being traded. He's just like, fuck, I just need to end this conversation with this guy. We'll trade you.
Was it Ryan Clark that said, all right, the minute that you give Antonio Brown the money that he's asking for, he's going to become a problem? Because he was always like this team guy and was a great contributor prior to getting paid. Once you gave him that money, all right, so those of you who don't personally know DJ, he pisses people off when you get like into an argument with him, because if he thinks he's right, he will give you this shit-eating grin, and you can't do anything about it because you don't want to like just punch the shit out of somebody. So DJ will give you this grin, and now what it looks like is that little shit-eating grin that Antonio Brown always has. He always just kind of smiles at the camera. He just smiles like when he's doing his Facebook Live in the locker room. He's just kind of just sitting there like no response, no reaction, just a shit-eating grin. And that's going to piss some people off. Like, that guy got money, and he just doesn't give a shit anymore. Like, he's the diva receiver. He is the stereotype.
He literally just quit playing last year. He actually quit playing.
Right.
He's like, fuck it, I'm not going to show up for practice.
What do you...
Who did that? Who was the Dolphins? Was that Marshall, or was just out there punting the ball? Brandon Marshall?
Oh, yeah. Brandon Marshall has punted the ball. Brandon Marshall has whipped the ball to a sideline. Yeah, he's the new Brandon Marshall.
That's incredible. I wish he would have done something like that. You got to at least up your antics if you're going to act like that, you know? Terrell Owens did, like, a workout in his driveway. Yep. Brandon Marshall's punting balls. Like, Antonio Brown isn't even, like, that great at being a diva yet.
he's got some room to grow. He does the things on social media, but like it's not out as outlandish. It's
Yeah,
just like typical like, oh hey, see you later Steelers Nation with like the peace
yeah,
sign out and everything.
exactly.
He
I
does need
want
to up that up.
Yeah, I
Up that
want
up.
something just real controversial. Not just talk. I want to see something happen. Like, Christ, give me a break.
What do
Up
you
your deepness if you're going to be one. Go all the way in.
Right. What do you think the next landing spot for him? I looked at the Vegas odds according to Bovada. So remaining with the Steelers was technically the favorite at plus 150. But then the next favorite by quite a margin was the 49ers at plus 285. You've got both the Cowboys and the Packers at plus 900. You've got the Bills, Cardinals, Colts, Jets, and Saints at plus 1,200. And then the Dolphins at 1,500. If you got to put a bet on this, where are you betting he suits up in 2019?
I was pretty confident that he's not going to end up in the AFC, as they just said they don't want to trade him to an AFC team. If you're going to, Buffalo would be a great option because they just suck.
Yeah, for the
San
Steelers,
Francisco,
you mean?
San Francisco is the second best odds, and it does make the most sense to be out there with the NFC. He's as far away as possible,
Yep.
right? California. NFC, he's playing with Jimmy Garoppolo. They need a wide receiver. I could see them kind of going that LA Rams route where they just go all in a year and just try to just get guys. That would probably be the best bet, which it clearly is outside of Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
So
I'm between the 49ers and the Colts. And like you said, the Colts seem less likely because they are in the same conference. But man, I talked to Mitchell, I guess, a week ago. They have got money to spend. And Irsay kind of seems like a loose cannon. Like he would take a chance on a guy.
oh, he's definitely a loose cannon.
So I could see that. In-house Green Bay Packers fan, DJ Primo. Green Bay Packers have 2 first-round draft picks, correct?
Yeah.
They've got
They've
got a little ammo. Would you be for or against the Packers bringing in Antonio Brown?
I would be okay with them obviously bringing in one of the best wide receivers in the league to add to Devontae Adams. Like that can't ever be bad.
Right.
But I don't foresee that happening. I don't think a franchise like Green Bay is going to bring a guy like that in, like Antonio Brown. They never really have like those big locker room issue guys. That's just not their thing.
Right.
Generally, I know they've got new management and stuff like that, but then Mike Murphy's still there. I don't know. I just don't see that happening. Why would they trade him to a team like Green Bay with Aaron Rodgers at quarterback, knowing he would be successful there? That would be another reason for them not to trade, because they would be so fucking good, and he would have just tremendous numbers, probably better than in Pittsburgh. So
yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, Ben Roethlisberger's good. That offense is good, but yeah, I put him on the Packers, and you can you can actually pair him with Adams. That'd be legit.
yeah.
Which teams of those that were in that ranking there keep Antonio Brown in that top 3 fantasy football wide receiver talk? Because Brown has been so damn consistent, so good at fantasy, like a surefire first rounder. You were always taking him the last 5 to 7 years. Which of those teams does he still stay in that conversation? And then, like, if you were to go to Buffalo or the Jets, how far do you drop a guy like that?
Yeah, I mean, in San Francisco, I still keep him up there as, top 5 wide receiver, just because he's going to be a target monster, all that type of stuff.
Yep.
Skipping over Dallas and Green Bay, because I don't know how they're plus 900, because I don't know. I just don't see neither one of those happening personally. But Buffalo, I think, that would kill him. That would hurt his draft stock. Like, obviously, it's going to be target, but how are you going to get him the ball? We've seen him play without Ben Roethlisberger, with a much lesser quarterback than Ben Roethlisberger, and he never really played well ever without Roethlisberger. So going to play with Josh Allen, I think Josh Rosen's going to be good, but we have yet to see on that. Obviously, he'd be good on the Colts because Andrew Luck's the man, but the Jets as well. I just don't. If it's a quarterback that's much lesser than Roethlisberger, I've seen how it's turned out, and it hasn't been good for Antonio Brown.
This is what I'm confident at saying on a random Sunday in February. I still think he would warrant a fairly high pick. There's still going to be people that go like, okay, that's Antonio Brown. He's good enough to overcome the challenges of maybe a young quarterback. We're looking at guys like Allen and Darnold, second-year guys. But it's not going to be me. Like, I'm not confident enough to take him late first, early second round. Like if that's where he's still going to go, most years you'd be like, oh my gosh, AB is that's the most guaranteed thing you can get at the wide receiver position. But I just don't think he'd be my headache. Like he would be on my list of players to avoid if he goes to the Bills, maybe the Cardinals, the Jets, obviously the Dolphins. I don't see that for being a thing. But yeah, I'm with you on that. I think there's a couple of teams, especially the Colts, the Packers, the Cowboys, the 49ers, the Saints. I'm keeping him right where he currently was with the Steelers, or if not even a little bit higher. But with those other teams, he's not going to be my problem. I wouldn't draft him.
Let me think of it another way. Let me put it out there. This just popped in my head. But historically, Antonio Brown has been successful because of Ben Roethlisberger's ability to extend a play. Like that's where a lot of their big plays came from. So maybe Jimmy Garoppolo wouldn't be the best matchup for him if you think about it that way. Maybe it would be like an Aaron Rodgers who extends it, or a guy who is able to extend like Andrew Luck. It could still be like a pretty good quarterback, but if they're not able to extend the play, maybe that's just not a good matchup for something like Antonio Brown is.
So maybe Josh Allen is the secret weapon that could be awesome.
That is a secret weapon. He's just going to be running around and hucking the ball.
If that happens, then I'll just be okay with admitting that I was totally wrong on him going to the Bills. But man, I don't think. I mean, AB's pretty much. I don't know. I want to say he's about the money, but at the same time, like I feel like he wants to win a little bit more than Le'Veon Bell. Let's transition to bring Bell in this conversation as well. I think Le'Veon Bell has basically, without specifically like out loud saying it, he has made it known he'd rather get paid than play for a winning team. I think AB's a little bit more like he'd like to win and be the guy, but Le'Veon Bell, I could see him going anywhere. Whoever chalks up the most money for him, that's where he's going to go. I got the Vegas odds for that one as well. In this order, you got the Jets, the Raiders, a three-way tie with the Bucks, the Eagles, the Packers. The next line down, another three-way tie with the Niners, Colts, Ravens, and then a couple of real big ones at 1,200 and 1,600 with the Texans and the Seahawks. Dude, if the Jets fork over all that money, I don't think that they're going to compete for a little while yet. I like what they have in Darnold, and they have a lot of holes to fill. By the time that Le'Veon Bell by the time the Jets would be good, Le'Veon Bell is probably going to be, I don't want to call him washed up, but towards the tail end of his career. If they fork over all that money, isn't that a huge mistake?
I don't know. They're improving heavily. So Sam Darnold is a solid quarterback. They have Robbie Anderson there, wide receiver. They could add in the draft or in free agency. Obviously, they can do that with Le'Veon Bell, and that defense is solid. Jamal Adams wants him to come there. So, he's all about that money. Le'Veon is about that money. So, whoever pays him the most money is going to be the team that gets him. Do you think that he'll have an issue, though, once he gets paid like that, if the team just isn't winning?
No.
You don't think so?
No, I could see Bell being that guy. Like he had the issue. Like I don't think he ever really had an issue when it came to like team and performance wise. I don't know that we have a lot to base that off of because the Steelers were always pretty relevant while he was there and he was actually playing. I think as long as you give that guy his guaranteed money and he's on the field, I mean, it's going to be what it is. He's going to just play like the interviews by the book. He's basically going to treat it like a quarterback and say, it's a team game. It's this. I don't see the money necessarily going to his head. I think in the back of his mind, it's I got paid. I got what I want. I'm collecting the check at this point. I think he's a good running back. He's going to give the effort. End of the day, though, I think his priority is the bank account.
I mean, he's going to get signed by the Jets. I just think that's where he's going to end up. I don't even think it's much of a competition.
As a Dolphins fan, I'd like to see the Jets give him a boatload of money and have that handcuff the franchise. The team that I like the best him to go to is the Texans. They're not a big, heavy favorite either, but Deontay Foreman, all he's proven so far is that he can't stay healthy. Lamar Miller, I mean, he's been okay, but in spurts. If you can kind of like make that a trio of running backs with Le'Veon Bell in there, a healthy Deshaun Watson, get some healthy receivers, get QT healthy, get Fuller healthy, you've got Hopkins, you add Bell to that mix, that division is so up in the air. I think that can make the Texans kind of like the front runner up in that division. And once you make it, anything's possible. So if you're in win now mode, I love the idea of adding him to the Texans.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Colts aren't going to go after a guy like that. I think they really do like Marlon Mack and their kind of like three-headed
Yeah,
trio.
they already got
Uh,
enough.
they have there, so they don't need anybody like that. But I don't know. I'm sold that the Jets are going to end up with him. Like I feel like it's a lock that he's just going to end up with the Jets. I know Oakland's second. We'll talk about that because we're going to preview them.
Yep.
But I feel like the Jets are just the clear. Obviously, that's why they're the highest odds. But it just feels like that's where it's going to be. It just feels like all signs are pointing towards New York.
Right. How terrible would it be if it ends up being Tampa Bay that forks over all that money after reaching for Ronald Jones? You're almost like punting, like saying, "We screwed that one up, man. we gotta bring in this veteran now."
That would make sense too. I mean, that would be another makes sense landing spot with Jameis Winston and Mike Evans there. That would be a really, really, really fun trio, Le'Veon, Jameis, and that would be a really wild trio with Jameis and Le'Veon, but that would be great.
Yeah, new coach, new beginning. It could be the beginning of beautiful things.
Yeah.
Before we go on to that Raiders preview that you so perfectly teased, let's talk about Pristine Auction because they are a great sponsor of this podcast. They've got daily auctions packed with tons of stuff for the man cave. They guarantee their items as they all come with certificates of authenticity from only the trusted sources. If you are going to go to the website, it's www.pristineauction.com. Make sure you mention the Loaded Box podcast in the How Did You Hear About Us section when you register. And we're not going to announce the specifics on it anytime too soon here, but we do have another giveaway item from Pristine, so thanks very much to them for that. And you're going to want to get your hands on it. I know. I'll give one teaser. We've done 2 wide receiver products in the past. We're switching positions. We're like Robert Kraft here. We're a position switcher. We're going with a running back this time, and it's a good one. It's a damn good running back, so I'll just let that one marinate for a little bit. But make sure you head over to pristineauction.com today. And with that, as DJ mentioned, we're going to preview the offseason for the Oakland Raiders. The reason why we selected the Raiders is because we put it out to the public. We put out a tweet and said, hey, who do you want us to preview? Because I figure on these offseason ones, we can just do a team of the Loaded Box Podcast Twitter audience's preference, and the Raiders were a nominee. And I liked the idea of the Raiders because they've got quite the interesting team. They've got an interesting offseason surrounding them. So that's who we're going to talk about today. DJ, my voice is sore and I want to take a drink of beer. So why don't you take it from here?
You should have had Mitch on for this podcast since he's the Raiders guy. I should have bailed on this one and let him jump in on this.
That's
Although
right.
I thought I saw Hunter's basketball team, the basketball team that you're currently playing for in our little town in Wisconsin. Where's that preview?
Correction. I don't currently play anymore because our season came due to a first-round playoff exit via 34-point differential.
Well, that's perfect. So then we talk about next year's season. So this is the off season right now. So we talk about your garbage team of 70-year-olds and then like a few young guys.
You want to know the bad part about rec league basketball is if you get last place like we did, there's no incentive. We don't get a first-round pick. Like we don't get our pick of these lottery guys. We're just the same team, but we're a year older. So that's my preview and that's my review. That's it.
You need a first-round pick.
We're screwed for the foreseeable future.
All right, we're going to the Raiders, I guess, then.
All right, let's talk about the Raiders. I'm
much more interested in your basketball team than I am in the Raiders, though.
Dude, here's what I like about the Raiders, and I'll actually get to the Raiders, but let me tell you what I think are their top 3 team needs. 1, I think you've got edge rusher. They need help at edge rusher. 2,
that's a guarantee.
That's a damn guarantee. 2, they need help at wide receiver. 3, they need help in the secondary. Do you want to interject right there, or do you want me to go through the reasons why?
I agree exactly with 3 of those. Secondary, I'd say specifically cornerback. Yep. And then also I would add to that list running back just because Marshawn Lynch is old as shit. And so is Doug Martin. I think they could use a solid running back there for cheap. I mean, in the draft, you don't have to fork up for it. But yeah, I would add running back, which I'll get into.
Okay. Number 1, I think we both agreed was edge rusher. The Raiders ranked dead last in sacks last year. They had 13. 1-3. Every other team in the NFL had at least 30. Khalil Mack had 12.5. He almost had as many as the Raiders. The sad part about that You take the Oakland Raiders sack total and you add Khalil Mack's, they still rank dead last. So even if they had Khalil Mack, they would still need to add a pass rusher. So I think first and foremost, you need an edge rusher. 2, I said wide receiver. I would name the names of the Raiders' current wide receivers, but it's a Sunday. It's the offseason. I'm in a good mood. I do not want to depress me, you, or the listeners. So I'm not even going to say their names.
I don't even know. I think I can name like 2 of them right now.
Just don't even say their names. I already promised no depression.
Yeah.
Here's the beauty. They have 3 first-round picks. They've got number 4, number 24, number 27. I don't think there's a wide receiver. Actually, I know there's not a wide receiver that warrants pick number 4 overall. But anything's fair game at number 24. Anything's fair game at number 27. One of those has to be a receiver. And the last one I said was secondary. They invested a high pick in Garyon Conley a couple years ago. They invested a fairly high pick in Carl Joseph even a couple years before that. Outside of those 2 guys, there are not much for playmakers. They still finished 19th in passing yards allowed per game last year, so they weren't terrible, but obviously room to improve. And then you're in a division with Phillip Rivers and the Chargers, who are going to air it out, and Patrick Mahomes, who definitely aired it out last year, and the Kansas City Chiefs. So at some point down the line here, you're going to need to stop that. You're going to need secondary help. So those are my 3 kind of like areas that I would look into. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, no, I mean, like I said, I completely agree with you. As I said, I would just add running back. I think that would take. They need a better running back because they got guys up front, right? They've got a good offensive line, and right now, I just don't think Derek Carr is the kind of quarterback that can just carry a team on his own. And the running back to run behind that solid offensive line to take some of that pressure off, I think would do tons for Derek Carr's just psyche in general. So I think it would be huge. It would get guys more open. He wouldn't feel like he has to do everything because that's half of his issue right now. And I think that would be really important.
Here's one for you, because Gruden is a known lover in every quarterback ever. So like part of him still loves Derek Carr. But he's kind of, I don't want to say he's gone out of his way to not like show total public support, but he's not been shy about talking about other quarterbacks, specifically Kyler Murray. I think he'll be on the board at number 4. I don't really buy into the Cardinals' hype yet of taking him number 1 overall and trying to trade Rosen.
That's not happening.
I don't think it is either. But at number 4, Kyler Murray, number 4. You got Gruden loving him some quarterbacks. Maybe he doesn't like Carr. Maybe he tries to get more picks. A little fire to that smoke.
Gruden is too old school to like a guy like Kyler Murray. He's too short. He runs around too much. His hands are too small. He would not draft a guy like that. He's not big enough.
All right, that's the thing. But so there's coach talk, and we hate coach talk. You got to see through coach talk. Gruden kind of said, almost like in his same swag that he had as an announcer, like years ago, Kyler Murray wouldn't have been on his draft board. He said that the evolution of the game, quarterback success of like structures like that, has changed him. He's kind of thrown a little bit of that aside, and he's going to start looking past all that, he said. So he's even gone out of his way to say that.
We're talking about a guy who brought in Jordy Nelson and Doug Martin and got rid of Khalil Mack and created the oldest team in the NFL, thinking that he could play in the 1970s again. He's not going away from what he knows. He would not grab a guy like that. He just talks that game, but he ain't about that life.
I love how you hold on to just biases and feelings towards certain people. Like, you're never going to be a Gruden guy ever again, are you?
Well, he ain't about that life. He's proved it to us already. I'm not going to listen to him say that he likes like Kyler Murray when he fucking brought in Jordy Nelson, agent, and fucking got rid of Khalil Mack and just and Bruce Irvin. He cut Bruce Irvin. Like, what is he? I don't know. I don't know. He's just Doug Martin. Bring in the oldest team possible.
That's true. That's true. All right, so but he's got a lot of draft capital, and that's where I want to spin this situation because
let's talk about that.
Yeah, so like we said, they hold number 4. I did a mock draft. My version 1.0 is available on loadedboxpodcast.com. Make sure you check that out. But in my current mock at number 4, I've got the Raiders going with Rashawn Gary, the defensive tackle out of Michigan. Man, this Raiders team, tons of holes. They need help everywhere. They can use help on the defensive line. And the nice thing about Gary is one of his best traits is being able to rush the passer from that defensive tackle position. So I think If he can be on the board, I really like him there. He was the top-rated player coming out of high school, and even though his college stats didn't really correlate to like being the top-ranked guy, his like size, speed, athleticism, that combo, and the metrics that he's going to post in all of his offseason workouts, that's going to push him up the boards. We see it every single year, and he's going to be that athletic freak that just jumps into the top 10 this year. And I think that number 4 could be a good spot for him. If Kentucky's Josh Allen, probably the number 1 edge rusher in this class, if he's off the board, which I likely think he will be, just based on the teams that are picking 1, 2, and 3, I like Rashawn Gary here at number 4.
So, yeah, I'll spin off of that. So if Josh Allen does not drop to them at 4, let's just say that's what happens, and they grab a guy like you just said, I could see them at 24 if this guy drops that far, and I know you'll get into it, but I'll talk about the guy that I think they could grab there is Montez Sweat, the edge out of Mississippi State.
Yep.
11.5 sacks in his senior season. I don't know if he'll get that far, but they clearly need to add a pass rusher. He is a guy that can get to the quarterback. That they clearly need to get a pass edge, right? They're going to get one in the first round. I don't know if he'll get that far. I don't even know if he'll get past Green Bay, to be honest with you, in that first round. But if he does, that's a guy I could potentially see them getting at that 24 spot. But, you know, with what's happening at 1, 2, and 3, and the trades that could potentially happen, like you said, ahead of them, Josh Allen could easily also get to that number 4 spot.
Potentially, yeah. If we see some of these teams that are like starving quarterbacks, if they want to jump up and try to get a Haskins, trying to get a Murray. If Denver gets crazy and wants to get Drew Lock that early, anything's possible. And it's only February. February.
It's a quarterback league, so even if the top 3 teams don't need a quarterback, somebody is going to try their ass off them to make sure they get into that top, 3 before one of those other teams is able to get a quarterback.
Right. And you mentioned Sweat out of Mississippi State. I currently have him mocked to the Dolphins. I believe it's 13, because I think the Packers are 12. And I have the Packers taking edge rusher Ja'Kai Polite out of Florida. So I already have him off the board, but yeah, that guy's a monster. Polite and Sweat are, actually, in my opinion. So if he falls to 24, yeah, definite no-brainer. Even if they go pass rusher at 4 and a guy like Sweat falls to 24, sprint your card up there. You give it to your fastest player. You give it to old Jordy Nelson. You let him run that shit up there. He'd be good for something that way.
We can see, I agree with you. There's nothing wrong with getting 2 pass rushers.
Nope.
Like, some of the best teams in the league some of the best defenses in the league have 2 pass rushers. That's the most important position on defense right now.
Yep, absolutely.
In the league, getting to that passer. So if you don't have, I would love to see the Packers just draft 2 edge guys this year.
Well, like they did last year. I mean, they went a bunch of cornerbacks. This year, go a bunch of edge rushers.
Go back to edge. I mean, Jair Alexander worked out. Hopefully, they can get Alexander worked out. So. But yeah, there's nothing wrong with grabbing an edge there.
Right.
2 edges in that first round.
You mentioned pick number 24. I currently have them doing my second biggest need, which was wide receiver. I got Marquise Brown, the wide receiver out of Oklahoma, also known as Hollywood. But here's the spot that they can realistically, barring like no trades, I think really feel comfortable going with that receiver. I've already got Metcalf out of Mississippi, and I've got Harry out of Arizona State. I got them off the board already in my mock. So Hollywood Brown and Mississippi's A.J. Brown are my next best options. And Gruden, like I said a little bit earlier, he has been publicly talking about Kyler Murray, about Hollywood. I mean, the writing's on the wall there. They need a playmaker. They need a receiver. I'd be good with either of those 2. The downfall right now with Hollywood, he's going to miss the combine. He had everyone's favorite lady, Liz Frank. Is that how you say that?
No. I don't even know what you're saying.
Liz Frank surgery? Yeah. That's every.
I was so confused there for a second. What the fuck are you talking about?
Everyone knows Liz Frank. If you're an NFL fan, your favorite female's name is Liz Frank.
Yeah.
I don't even know if I'm saying that 100% right, but I'm going to stick with it.
Yeah, I think it is.
Here's the other weird thing, though, about Hollywood Brown. He and Murray, like, if you put masks on him, they'd be the same person. He's 5'10", $170. So that kind of stinks, but at the same level, we've seen these smaller type wide receivers have more success recently in the NFL. So I think that he's still going to find himself in the first round. So I've got Hollywood here, but I'm not opposed to him or A.J. Brown out of Mississippi, who, when we have a guest on to talk NFL draft wide receivers, this A.J. Brown guy, I have got a lot of faith in him, and I can't wait to look into him a little more because what I've seen so far, this dude might find himself in the first round as well, and he looks like an absolute stud.
So building off of your wide receiver, I would add running back to their potential needs here because I talked about guys like Marshawn Lynch and Doug Martin. I say this, I'll say it again. They're not it, man. They are not it, Chief. So at that 27th pick, I believe was their last pick there. I could see them snagging a guy like Josh Jacobs. So there's that talk about running back out of Alabama, obviously. Yep. But there's that talk about Le'Veon Bell, and the odds are high on Le'Veon Bell going to Oakland. I think they were the second highest odds of getting.
Yep, they were second highest.
To me, that doesn't make any sense. Like, why waste so much money on Le'Veon Bell when you get a running back who I think in comparison so far, I haven't watched too much, but I've watched him play, is very similar to Le'Veon Bell. He's a big, solid guy, fluid, can get to the edge. He's really compact and a lot faster than you would think of with a guy that size, and he can run you over and he can catch the ball. Like, he has a lot of the similar traits that you can get for a lot cheaper. I honestly think that the odds for Antonio Brown to the Raiders should be higher than the odds from Le'Veon Bell to the Raiders.
Yeah, with your Alabama running back there, man, Jacobs, he made himself some money in that college football playoff. Like, he made a name for himself, just how dynamic he looked at everything he was doing. And he was that running back that was never going down on first contact. Yeah. In my mock right now, I don't have a single running back going in the first round.
Yeah.
But, man, it's early. Like, my mock is going to change a lot and probably often.
Yeah.
And I think if there is a running back that's going to find himself into the first round, it's him. And if there's a team that I think might take him, it's the Raiders. The Raiders, the Eagles, they're kind of in a flux right now with what they're going to do at running back. And the Raiders have all that draft capital. They can go so many different routes. And with the success we've been seeing, the first-round running backs, with Elliott, with Barkley, like, Jacobs looks like a freaking workhorse. Like, I think he can be your next guy. Man, Gruden's not scared to get a playmaker, in my opinion. So that's not too far off.
That's exactly what I was going to say. I did teach draft capital, and this is where I was going to talk about that. So as you said, I don't think Gruden is afraid to make a move like that. They have 3 first-round picks, and they have hella room in their salary cap. I actually looked it up ahead of time. Yeah, wild. Like, 7th highest salary cap. They're way above the average in the room there, so they have room for him. Right. I mean, obviously they got rid of Khalil Mack and Amari Cooper, so they have plenty of room in their salary cap. I could see them making a move at Antonio Brown. I would not be surprised to see him go there just because they have those 3 first-round picks and a whole bunch of money free.
That'd be wild. Yeah, you're right. It's kind of weird that they're not on that list yet. But if there could be a surprise team, it could be Oakland. So going on to their last first-round pick as of now, barring trade, they're at number 27. And in my mock, I currently do have them doubling down on the defensive line. This time, edge rusher Brian Burns out of Florida State. So, like I said, literally based on those sack stats, they could take 3 rushers or defensive linemen in this first round, and it might not be a mistake. The thing about Burns, he might be a little bit undersized, but even despite being undersized, like, he can set the edge so legit in the running game. I'm going to refer it back to a Dolphins player because that's where kind of my wheelhouse is. But they drafted Charles Harris in the first round a couple of years ago, and the knock on him was – what'd you say?
Was he Taco or something? Was his nickname like Taco?
That's Taco Charlton, by the way. He plays for the Cowboys.
Oh, yeah. I got confused so long ago.
No, but Charles Harris, his knock was he was a little undersized and he couldn't set the edge, and that has been the biggest knock on him. He literally can't find the field sometimes because when they put like a tackle and a tight end on him, Charles Harris is more likely to end up on the ground than anywhere near the ball on that. Like, he gets knocked over. Brian Burns plays with this like sense of, I've got a chip on my shoulder. I'm this smaller guy, but I'm not going to let that stop me. He's high motor. He can set that edge. He's so impactful in the running game. But also, like, that motor that he has, I think can let him kind of hold his own against bigger tackles that he's going to see in the NFL. And he's a sack getter. He'll get to the quarterback as well. 33 career games, 23 sacks. Like, that's nothing to, like, shake your head at. And Florida State's kind of been down the last few years as well. So we're not hearing as much about him. But he's another guy that he's going to come in a little light weight-wise at the combine. But end of the day, like his metrics are going to be off the board as well. He's going to be fast. He's going to show up nice in drills. I think he finds himself in the first round. And even if they take a defensive lineman at one of those earlier picks, right now I've got Burns and I like it.
So I'm going to just veer off for one quick second and I wanted to let you know, because we don't edit, so we can't cut this, but Villanova is getting their asses spanked by Xavier right now. We can skip past that, but I just wanted to let you know why I'm thinking about it.
For the college basketball enthusiasts out there, because, dude, hey, it's the end of February right now. What's coming up? What's one of our best times of the year? March Madness. We are just freaking March Madness to the core. And every year, DJ, we always hype. Like, we are going to bring you, like, all this March Madness content. We're going to be drunk tweeting. We're going to be doing videos. And we always forget. We always drink too much too early, and we forget. So not only are we going to podcast like we always do the morning of the first Thursday of March Madness, we're going to bring you a podcast. But I have so much confidence, and we're a year older. We're like in our 30s now. We can do this, DJ. We can bring content throughout the day that weekend. Let's do it.
We'll try. I'm excited. I think this is going to be the March Madness tournament with maybe some of the most upsets like ever, just because of the shit. But yeah, if you're not paying attention to college basketball and you need a team that you think's going to upset early, Villanova, lock them in. First round loss.
You heard it here. Loaded Box Podcast. We do everything. We do girls, we do drinking, we do football, and now we do college basketball.
Speak for yourself on the girls.
Moving on, let's talk a little bit about the NF. You have anything Raiders left?
Nope, I'm all done with those fucks.
All right.
Thank God.
You know what else is coming?
Talk about some of those wide receivers, though.
What'd you say?
We talk about some of their wide receivers.
No, I'm still in a good mood. I'm still in a great mood. I do not want to talk. And you already said the Jordy name, so I'm already a little bit saddened. So coming up here, starting February 26th with like some weigh-ins and all that jazz, is the NFL Combine. The real meat of the Combine's a couple of days later, but it runs through Monday, March 4th. So obviously, I mean, we'll talk a little bit more Combine coming up, but I just want to go like an outer shell. Like, let's talk like skeleton of the actual Combine. Of all the drills they do, of all the tests that they do, which ones do you actually pay attention to because you find them beneficial?
So I looked at this and I completely forgot to look up the name of the drill that I was gonna talk. I think it might be the shuttle.
Oh, even better. Just describe it.
Well, it's the one with the cones where it's an agility test, right? So I feel like that's one of the most important things, is that tests your hip movement, your quickness to get around corners. So it's really important for different positions, whether it's a cornerback, because that shows great hip movement, great fluidity. I don't know what the word I would use there. Fluidity, is that right?
Beautiful.
And then, or for a defensive end, your ability to get around the edge and your quickness around the edge, I think that would show a lot. So those, I feel, is a really, really important drill when you're looking at the Combine, is quickness and hip fluidity and things like that, just to see athleticism for guys at those different positions. Robert
Kraft has great hip fluidity.
He probably does.
I'm with you on that one. The one I really like, and to be honest with you, though, it's fooled me. It's kind of caught me off guard in the past. I love the wide receiver drill where they have to go from one sideline to the next, and the quarterbacks are throwing from the opposite sides. And the receivers' biggest, what they look for there is running as fast as they can, staying on that line, but then, like, obviously, like, hands catches. But you got to be coming, because those balls are coming, like, freaking left and right, obviously. I mean, whoa, what happened there? Whoa. Adult onset puberty. Woo! All right. Let me regroup here. I love that drill. I think that it really helps, like, show the control that a wide receiver can have in his routes. But what scares me about that drill is I remember when Kevin White came out of the draft, that dude was a machine. He crushed that drill, and it sold me on Kevin White. So I think while that drill is important, look at other things too. You got to look at some other things. So don't try to get fooled on a guy like Kevin White. So don't let one drill like be the end all be all. But I want to get your opinion on this one, because I think the most overrated drill is everybody's favorite drill, which is the 40-yard dash. And let me start by saying it's important in the sense that I want to see players of a certain position be under a certain number. I want to see them perform adequately and know that they can do it from a speed like tangible. But I don't want to go crazy over John Ross breaking the 40-yard dash record, because I remember the day that happened, watching that combine and just basically like watching Twitter just left and right, and Twitter just blowing up like, oh my God, he's the fastest wide receiver ever. He's already good. He's going to shoot up draft boards. And here I am tweeting like, cool, entertaining, good for John Ross. However, let's tread a little lightly on that guy. Like, he hasn't sold me as a receiver. And if you remember right, he got hurt doing that and couldn't participate in the rest of the combine. So while the 40 is important to a certain extent, I don't need my guy to be breaking records.
No, it's not important at all, actually. Let's be honest. It's an attention grabber. It's a way to get on the NFL, really hypes it up, and it's really smart of them to do, because it's like, it's a way to get eyes on your combine when it's on TV. So it's like
right.
The NFL, obviously, they're competing with all the other sports in the off season, and they want to have people come look at it. So let's hype up that 40-yard dash. Because honestly, when you watch the Olympics and you get to the track, what's the most exciting thing when you're talking track? For like the last 12 years that Usain Bolt's been there, what's the most exciting thing? It's a 100-meter dash.
Thanks for letting me guess.
Yeah, well, you were sucking at it. It was taking too long. But it's a 100-meter dash, so you get excited about guys just fucking all out sprinting, and that's like the hype when it comes to the Olympics. Same thing here for the 40-yard dash. It's just
right.
It's a spectacle. It's a circus show. Everybody just likes to watch a guy run fast and then just talk about it. But let's be honest. Who cares about how fast the offensive lineman fucking runs?
Right.
And Devontae Adams, not a great 40 guy, but one of the best wide receivers in the league. So I just don't.
Oh, the list goes on. Anquan Boldin, Jarvis Landry, Devontae Adams. Like, there's a lot of guys that didn't really run all that well, but hey, they're Pro Bowlers now.
Yeah, all pros.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So like I said, I don't want to get into too much combine right now just because it hasn't even started yet. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as it happens. It's fun to give a little bit of a skeleton. But DJ, as the Loaded Box podcast, I feel like at some level, at some point, we need to go to one of these type of events. Would you rather us go to the Combine or the NFL Draft?
I thought you were going to say that we should run a 40, which I was going to completely agree with.
Time out. Let me rephrase that. March Madness. Should we run 40s? Wait.
I know where you're going already, but say it.
Loaded Box podcast. March Madness. Should we have a 40-ounce beer chugging contest?
And that's our 40?
Boom.
I knew you were going somewhere with that. I thought the 40s were going to involve bottles of 40s and running, but that will work too. Or we could sprint the 40-yard dash to a 40, and then whoever can finish it first wins.
I love that. My issue with that would be, in case you don't know, DJ and I are located in the Midwest, and it has been cold, and it has been icy, and it has been snowy. If we try to run somewhere for 40 yards, we are going to hit an icy patch, and we're not going to do this sober. This could be really dangerous.
This could, either way, something needs to be done. We just came up with great content for March Madness.
Boom.
So, yeah, I was like, I knew you were going to involve 40s.
Yeah. I don't even care what your answer for my original question. We're good. We're good.
We'll get 40s involved.
Beautiful. Let's end with this one, because I put out a Twitter poll. I don't remember which day it was, but it was asking if your favorite team was in the market for a quarterback, knowing that a couple of these guys aren't even eligible for this draft or even the draft after that. But you could have one of these guys. Trevor Lawrence, Dwayne Haskins, Kyler Murray, or Tua Tagovailoa. Which of those four would you have, or would you select? And this isn't even crazy. I agree with this. The results came back overwhelmingly. Trevor Lawrence, who's not eligible for this draft or the next draft, but finally in 2021 he's eligible for a draft. But the audience and myself, I don't know what you voted, took the freshman kid over all these other guys who are either in this draft or Tua, who can be in next year's draft. Isn't that amazing?
I voted Trevor Lawrence as well. He is the next version of Andrew Luck. He's going to be like the can't-miss number one quarterback prospect when he's drafted. He's Andrew Luck, like the next Andrew Luck, the next guaranteed going to be really good quarterback. I feel like it's clear.
Okay, so, oh shoot, DJ, keep talking about Trevor Lawrence one time. My wife is locked out of the house. I'll be right back.
Wow, he is going to. It's not a house, ladies and gentlemen. It's actually like a 10 square foot apartment that they're in, but it's okay for him to hype it up. But obviously, with that long flowing hair as well, you can't not love Trevor Lawrence. He's got the appeal with the long hair. He's got the sunshine look. I mean, he's got it all, right?
What a great thing to come back to, just talking about Trevor Lawrence's hair, because that's exactly where I would have went to if the situation would have happened to you. But this was the turn that I wanted to take with this, because we already went on. We're big college basketball guys as well. And the huge thing in the news this last week was, Zion Williamson, his shoe blew out. Should he return to keep playing? Should he prepare for the NBA draft? And this has brought the NBA to say, okay, maybe we're going to get rid of the one and done rule. Maybe we'll let these 18-year-olds come in. If we
People don't realize that it's the NBA's rule as well, just so they know.
Correct. It is the NBA's rule. It's free scouting. It's literally what it is for the NBA. It's genius on their part. Mm-hmm. What do you think about letting this happen in the NFL? It happens so rarely where you have like a prospect that you would think would be ready out of high school. But at the end of the day, shouldn't it be these people's choice? And I don't know if NFL GMs totally are, obviously they're not a great correlation to a Twitter audience. It's totally different. However, I think there'd be some NFL GMs that would take a chance on Trevor Lawrence over some of these other quarterbacks in the down quarterback draft.
Yeah, I mean, you have to go play college football no matter what. I think that's just like, you can't come out of high school and think that guy's going to be able to play in the NFL, because some of those guys would die. But
size-wise, I mean, that's probably one of the biggest things.
But yeah, I don't know. It's so rare. It's like 99% of the players need those 3 years to develop and get better, and it's because it's the NFL. It's not the NBA. It's such a different level, and it's so different. I don't know. I still kind of like the rule. Maybe sophomore year would make sense.
I think it's so rare. I agree that you would want one just to see it. You're not going to have as many GMs taking a chance on a high school prospect just because, I mean, just body-wise. You need to have a frame to survive in that league. But, man, as a true freshman against an Alabama Nick Saban defense, Trevor Lawrence literally just lit it up, outperformed Tua, who is supposed to be next year's kind of like hot quarterback prospect, made you totally say, like, okay, if you're tanking for Tua, screw that. Let's tank 2 years and take for Trevor. Like, let's get Trevor Lawrence in here.
Until 2021.
What's that? Oh, you
You're
might as well.
All for taking until 2021. I know that.
As a Dolphins fan, I'm absolutely doing that.
There you go.
I'll have that long hair. Anything else you want to add to this one, or should we call it a day?
I'm ready. I'm hungry. I haven't eaten lunch.
All right. I'm with you. As always, thanks for listening. Check us out on Twitter at LoadedBox. Check out our website, loadedboxpodcast.com. It's a happening time. It's off season, but hey, we've got fantasy football mock drafts getting put out. Obviously, we have podcasts put out. We've got NFL mock drafts put out. So make sure you check out that website as well. Check us out on iTunes, Google Play, YouTube, Spotify. Pretty much anywhere that you would listen to anything, we are there. So, DJ, you're smiling. You're giving me that Antonio Brown look. Either you can say something or you can send us out.
Bye.